Hello everyone, it's the Pace Chaser again. Welcome to one of my videos. It's June 2024 and I'm in Grimsby, and the title of this video is Grimsby Bus Stations Past, Present and Future. We'll look at the bus stations and the other stop facilities for buses in Grimsby Town Centre, as the title suggests, past, present and future. So we're starting in the past, and this is the former Briggargate bus station. It was Lincolnshire Road Cars bus station in Grimsby, and it was used for the out of town services. When Lincolnshire Road Car pulled out of the Grimsby area in the mid-80s, it was taken over by Appleby's. They had a booking office for the coach tours and things, but they also operated a lot of the rural services that Lincolnshire Road Car had given up, and they used it as a bit of a depot as well. They parked a couple of coaches down the back. The main depot was in Julian Street in Grimsby, but they also used this bus station as a bit of a depot. And when Appleby's went bust in 2001, the bus station was used by Amvale. I don't think they actually took it over, but they operated some of the ex-Appleby's services, and they ran them from here, and it fell into disuse in the 2000s. So that was the out-of-town services. Well, what did the local town services do? We'll find that out in a minute, but first of all I'm going to take a bit of a detour, the reason for which will become clear later on. Incidentally, I did feature Briggargate bus station in a video called The Ghosts of Lincolnshire Road Car in Grimsby. If I think on, I'll put the link to that in the description to this video. But we're just looking up the top of Bethlehem Street to the junction there with Brighowgate off to the left. Now to the right there, nowadays is Frederick Ward Way, where the cars are just going. But previously, until the mid-80s, that was the start of Baxtergate, and Baxtergate will become important to our story again very soon, so I just thought I'd show you it as a bit of an aside. If I turn the other way, we're looking down Bethlehem Street. In the middle distance it becomes South St Mary's Gate, and further on it becomes Osborne Street after that. It's got a couple of modern day buses passing there. In tram days, the trams terminating in Grimsby Town Centre and the ones heading towards Briggargate came towards me along here, and the Briggargate ones would have gone past here and round to the left there where that bus is just going. The trams terminated in the town centre just near where the pub is there, and then they turned off to the right and went round a loop to go back towards Cleethorpes. When the trolley buses replaced the trams, they didn't replace the Briggargate routes, so they terminated in the town centre by coming along Osborne Street, South St Mary's Gate, etc. towards us here, and then they turned off to the right again where the trams had turned off. Trams heading from Briggargate towards the Cleethorpes direction came along here and turned off to the left where the ones terminating, turned to the right down the street there, and we'll show you that. So the trolley buses were replaced in 1960 by buses, and then in the 60s the buses, or by the 60s should I say, any buses heading sort of west or south from Grimsby, so towards the hospital, Scather, places like that, they came along Osborne Street, South St Mary's Gate, Bethlehem Street towards us here, and then just went in that direction. Buses going the other way went along Victoria Street, which we'll see in a moment. By the end of the 80s this road was one way, so the left hand lane here was to turn onto the Brighowgate Bridge there, turn left, and the right hand lane was to go onto Baxtergate, but again we'll talk about that in a bit. So as we said, trams terminating in the town centre, and trolley buses when they terminated came along here, and then they turned off to the right down the street which was there. You can see the alignment of it where that wall is on the corner going round, and through the building with the little murals on it there. Trams from the Briggargate direction would have come along there and then turned off left down that street, and then by the 60s, as I say, any buses heading sort of west or south came along here. Any buses heading east came down this bit of Bethlehem Street and then again turned off to the left through there where that building now is, and they ended up in the old marketplace, which is where we're going to go next. So the other end of that street that's been built over was where the Wilco's disused store is now, and that's where the trams, the trolley buses and buses heading east came out through the old marketplace, which is here, and then down Victoria Street heading away from me just there. In the mid-60s thereabouts, Victoria Street had its traffic flow reversed, so it became one way but towards me, and from that day onwards buses heading west or south were split. Some of them used the Osborne Street, South St Mary's Gate and Bethlehem Street route, and some of them came along Victoria Street again towards me, the opposite to what they'd done before. So that's fine, Pacer Chaser. Alright, so until the mid-60s, eastbound buses went down there, But then in the mid-60s it was reversed, so it was used by some of the westbound and southbound buses. But then what did the eastbound buses do? Well, we'll go down the other end of Victoria Street there and I'll show you. Just a quick view down Victoria Street there. Alfie the border collie with me this morning, so again if I shoot off to one side you'll know why. So it's like we're down Victoria Street. Now some of the buildings on the left hand side here were built in the 60s as part of the Riverhead shopping centre, and again that'll become important in a minute. So looking back up Victoria Street now from the corner of George Street, this is George Street. It's had quite a time of it. In the days of trams and trolley buses, this is where they went to gain access to Osborne Street. So they came down Victoria Street here towards me, turned around the corner there to the left, and then they went along to Osborne Street, as indeed until the mid-60s did any buses again heading west or south. So they came along there, turned left, went down George Street and turned right onto Osborne Street. George Street in the 60s was one way, but the opposite way to now. Nowadays it's one way towards me. In the 60s it was one way away from me. As we said, in the mid-60s the traffic flow on Victoria Street was made one way away from me as it is here. So buses heading south or west from Grimsby again would had a choice of two. They came along Victoria Street here and they either turned into George Street and down Osborne Street, or they went along Victoria Street. And the question I posed was what happened to the eastbound buses from the mid-60s. So obviously until the mid-60s eastbound buses had come along Victoria Street here towards me and just continued on their way there. The answer is that eastbound buses used Briggargate, remember that? And this is the other end of where Briggargate was. The Riverhead Centre that we mentioned finished about here, and it along the side of it ran Briggargate. Now buses on eastbound services towards Cleethorpes etc. Stopped along Briggargate. There were stops all along it from roughly not far from the junction I showed you earlier on, when we'd just come out of Briggargate bus station, all along it to this end. And then when it got down here it turned through about 90 degrees and made an end-on junction with George Street, which continued up to about here. In the mid-80s Frederick Ward Way, which you can just see through there where the cars are, that was built parallel to Briggargate, and the idea was that they wanted to close Briggargate and expand the shopping centre across the site of it. Now Frederick Ward Way, instead of turning through 90 degrees, carries on across a new bridge over the haven there and makes a junction with Victoria Street just down there past where Home Bargains is, if you can just see that. So rather than when buses came along Briggargate they had to turn through 90 degrees, head down there along George Street and then turn left into Victoria Street and follow it round, the new Frederick Ward Way just went straight on and makes a junction with Victoria Street along there. Now there wasn't room to put the bus stops on Frederick Ward Way because on the other side of that wall there you can see across the road is the River Freshney. So there wasn't space to move the bus stops. So the question is then what did they do with them? Well, I'll explain. So as we said, the purpose of closing Briggargate and building Frederick Ward Way in its place was so they could expand the shopping centre, and they did. They expanded it over Briggargate, and they renamed the shopping centre when it was enlarged was renamed Freshney Place, which is how we know it today. Briggargate survives as the address of some of the shops in the right hand part of Freshney Place as we're looking at it now. At the same time they expanded at Freshney Place, they also pedestrianised Victoria Street from where we've just been on the corner of George Street up to the old marketplace, and that meant that buses couldn't use it anymore. So what they did was they built a bus station here in this area. It was known as the Riverhead bus station. It opened in 1989 and it was served by buses in both directions. They made George Street down there two-way so buses could get to and from it, and there were stands on islands here. Basically, as you're looking this way, buses heading away from me would have served the right hand side, and buses heading towards me would have served the left hand side. And then they went through and it vented out onto Frederick Ward Way there. It was ideally situated. It was outside the entrance to Freshney Place, as you can see. So you come out of the shopping centre, get straight on your bus, or get off your bus and go straight in the shopping centre. It was a bit too ideal, to be honest, because what happened was people used to come out of the shopping centre, see that the bus was on one of the stands across, and run across to it without actually taking care of what the carriageway they were crossing. And there were quite a lot of near misses between buses and pedestrians. There were safety measures taken in 2007. The safety was improved somewhat, but in 2014 the bus station was closed. It was deemed not fit for purpose by the council, and that brings us up to the present situation, which is the Riverhead Exchange, and that's what we're going to look at next. The site of the bus station, after it closed in 2014, laid fallow. I did another video on it about 18 months or so ago, just as they were starting this square, but you could still see the base of the bus station stands. As you can see, they're redeveloping it into a square called Riverhead Square, but they've been going about 18 months and they still haven't actually finished it at the moment as I'm filming this. So in January 2014 the bus station closed, and the buses temporarily used stops around and about on the streets while they finished Riverhead Exchange. Now Riverhead Exchange sounds quite impressive, but actually it's a load of stops on 4 streets. The first part of which is on George Street. Here you can see 2 stands with number 12 stood there waiting to load. Generally the stand furthest away from me is services towards Euro Park and Gilby Road, and the stand nearest is buses towards Louth, and the 8 that goes the hard route to Cleethorpes. Now when Riverhead Exchange opened, the roadway was paved in the same kind of bricks as the pavement here, but there were instantly complaints from pedestrians. A lot of them said they struggled to see the step between the road and the pavement because the bricks being the same on both. Various people said that it gave them headaches and things, and there were also concerns about how durable the bricks were going to be under the buses. So in 2016 the bricks in the roadway were taken up and replaced by tarmac, as you can see here. Now the main part of Riverhead Exchange goes down Victoria Street. Incidentally, as part of the work, George Street was made one way again, but towards me this time, not as it had been in the 60s away from me. So this is the main part of the Riverhead Exchange. Along Victoria Street you get buses towards Cleethorpes, as you can see there with the number 3. Buses towards Immingham, there's one just leaving there. That double decker that's just going is on the 5 to Immingham. You also get the Lincoln bus from further down. So this is kind of the main area for the stands. I'll just get my camera to focus there. Now this building that's closed up and to let opposite me was a super bus stop, as it was called. It was a covered waiting area that had a cafe and toilets. It opened in 2014 when the rest of the Riverhead Exchange thing did. Unfortunately nobody really used it. The local services were frequent enough that people didn't need to sit down and have a cup of tea before they got on it. And the less frequent services, people tended to know what time they ran, so they just came to the bus station, you know, in time for the bus, rather than using the waiting facilities. So it closed in 2019 as a result of lack of use. Now one of the big drawbacks to the Riverhead Exchange thing is there's not a lot of information about, so people who aren't regular bus users tend to end up running around the streets trying to find a stop that they need. It was particularly bad when the Hull service used to go through to Cleethorpes, because it would be stood here waiting to go to Cleethorpes, and then somebody would get on and ask for Hull, only to be told it needed to be on the street parallel in about a minute's time, so often they'd miss it. So this is the third side of the Riverhead Exchange complex. This is Town Hall Street. Back in the day, up to about the 1960s, some of the buses going west or south went down here rather than using George Street. Most of them used George Street. But this nowadays will give you buses towards Morrison's, Waltham, the hospital, places like that. So at the other end of Town Hall Street now you can see the stands back there. There is the Town Hall, and then across the road is the fourth side of the Riverhead Exchange thing. The stop there, which is used by the Hull service and also by the 25 that only runs on Tuesday and Friday and goes to Market Raisin. Now I know what you're thinking, do National Express go from Grimsby Pacer? Well yes they do. There was a London service, but that finished quite quietly a couple of months ago before I'm doing this. So I'm filming this in June 2024. The London service ceased I think in about April time. So there is a National Express departure, the 151 to Birmingham, that goes once a day. And I know what you're thinking, where in Riverhead Exchange does that go from, Pacer? Well, it doesn't. I'll show you the stop it goes from in a moment, and that'll take us to the future. So there is the bus stop that National Express use. It does have a shelter, as you can see, but it's not particularly impressive. It's also used by Route 28, which only runs on Tuesdays. It's run by Grayscroft of Mablethorpe. But the buildings behind it are what really interests us. As you can see, probably if I zoom in, there we go. The derelicts, but they've been sold. Now, back in about January, February 2023, North East Lincolnshire Council bought those buildings. And the plan is they're going to demolish them, and that will be the site of the new bus station for Grimsby. Behind them is a car park, which I'll show you in a second. But yeah, they're going to pull those down, and then that'll be the start of a new bus station, apparently. So here we have the car park and the back of the shops we've just been looking at. So this is going to be the site of the new bus station apparently. This car park isn't normally very well used. The reason it's busier than usual today is that the multi-storey just next to me is closed for repairs, so the surface car parks are having to take up the slack. But this hopefully will be the site of the new bus station. As I say, the council have bought those shops to pull them down and build the bus station. The question is, when will it happen? Well, nobody seems to have the answers to that. As I said, they bought them back at the start of 2023. So about 18 months ago as I'm filming this video, and there's no sign of any work starting at the moment. But when it does, I'll bring you an update, and I'll be sure to film some buses here at some point as well when it opens. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please click the like button so more people can find it. Thank you for joining me. As I say, I will put a link in the description to the Ghosts of Lincolnshire roadcart video, where we look a bit more at Briggargate bus station and also the old bus garage, which is actually just round to the left across the level crossing there. But as always, thank you for joining me and Alfie. Take care, and from both of us, we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.